passed out of the House and is now under consideration in the U.S. Senate. While there are a lot of good components in the current bill, like making the 2017 tax cuts permanent, the National Taxpayers Union has some suggestions for changes the Senate can make to deliver the best bill for the American people. Joining me now to discuss is President of the National Taxpayers Union, Pete Sepp. Pete, welcome back.
Always great to be here.
You know what? I actually couldn't wait to hear your thoughts. I'm ready to chomp into them like a buffet or a hoagie or something of that nature. So tell us what you think about the bill as it stands.
Well, there is an awful lot to digest, to continue the analogy, but we do have a start to a very good tax and spending bill that will help to chart a different course away from higher taxes, constant, persistent deficits. We just need to make some additional adjustments here and keep our eye on the federal spending ball when appropriation season comes around. Now, first things first, the One Big Beautiful Bill does a great job of making sure that all the individual tax rate reductions that we had in 2017 are made permanent. Does a good job of keeping the child tax credit permanent. Now, we may remember it was only $1,000 before the Trump tax cuts. The child tax credit doubled, which is money straight into the pockets of parents who can really use it. That's now permanent. Great thing. The alternative minimum tax relief, that horrible parallel tax that many individuals had to pay because they weren't paying enough, according to the government, in the other tax system, that's gone. That is going to be a permanent fixture now, and only a few people will ever have to deal with that ever again. And on the business side, you've got lots of good things happening there too. And in fact, small businesses would get a bonus. The deduction they now have, thanks to the Trump tax cuts, originally at 20%, that's going to 23%. So a lot of small business owners, self-employed individuals, sole proprietors will be saying, hooray, I can finally count on additional relief to keep my business going.
I love that. So I have to tell you, I think one of the things as an adult, you go from doing the simple 1040 EZ back in the day. You just did that if you were like a active duty service member. You would not have itemized deductions. It was so simple to do taxes. The first time I encountered alternative minimum tax, we were sitting in the CPA's office and she said, well, we don't want to trigger the AMT. And I was like, what in the world are you? And so she explained it. I said, are you saying to me that if we use the tens of thousands of pages of the U.S. tax code, we find a way to pay the least possible tax, the government can look at our tax return and say, hey, you know what? You're just still not paying enough, and trigger a provision that would charge us a higher amount? And she said, yes, exactly. So we don't want to do that. So she starts explaining how we can avoid triggering it. It feels like a trick. Our tax code feels like a big old trick. Like no matter what you do, what you really need is an $1,800 an hour CPA/tax lawyer to help you if you start making any real money. Like if you start making real money, the government's like, oh, you're making too much. Let's fix that.
That's right. And the complexity of that system is horrible. Our study every year that we put out this year estimated that some 6 billion hours and $350 billion of money out of pocket and the value of our time was spent just on the federal income tax system. So, the government likes to brag. We have a very efficient income tax system. The IRS operates on a small budget. Well, that's because we have to do all the work. We're the ones who have to prepare the returns, go to the tax preparers. If we don't want to do that, go to tax lawyers and worry about the alternative minimum tax, on and on. It's really a good thing that this One Big Beautiful Bill has increased the standard deduction. Originally in 2017, it more than doubled. There's a bonus standard deduction in there, so people won't have to worry about itemizing to keep more of their own money. That is a huge tax simplification measure, too.
I love it. The permanence of the TCJA is very important. You also are recapping not just lower tax rates, but the temporarily bigger child tax credit, boosted standard deduction, and also the average worker experiencing a tax hike of about $3,000 if the bill fails. that number more than doubles if you are a family of 5 earning 200,000 a year. Your new tax burden would be around 7,500 higher. Those kinds of calculations are really important when having discussions about how only the rich are benefiting from this. It's actually not beneficial to rich people at all. This bill, it permanizes the tax cuts that the TCJA made, which were solely like the driver for those tax cuts were people who were in the middle, actual income earners. So close us out here. Anything else you want us to know as we look at the Senate? I'm expecting the Senate version. I don't know what it's going to be. I have about 45 seconds here.
We still have work to do. The green energy tax credits, well, the House is phasing those out on an accelerated schedule. Maybe we can accelerate those a bit more. The state and local tax deductions, SALT, well, the House bill is very generous in that respect. Let's work on that as well and figure out how to make all of the business provisions permanent, especially the write-off for equipment. You do that, you're going to get much, much more economic growth out of the bill, and that benefits everybody, every family.
I love it. Okay, so it's at NTU on X. Pete Sepp, thank you so much for coming back on. Have a great weekend.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right, take care.